Alright, hello everyone. I'm Eric Queen and this is rendering in Revit using MentalRay. Actually, I guess from last class on it's really rendering in 3dsMax using MentalRay. Let's see, we got a couple questions here too. This is from Lewis. My project only specified generic 6-inch recessed cam lighting fixtures rather than a specific fixture manufacturer and bulb combination. In this case, can one get .is file directly from various bulb manufacturers' website rather than from the fixture manufacturer? Is it better to specify an IS file from some other fixture with a similar bulb type? That's actually a really good question. I'd recommend trying to find an IES file that's closer to the actual fixture type instead of bulb, because of the fact that what it's measuring is actually the throw of the physical fixture, not necessarily the bulb. So if you had a bulb in space, that would have, a certain IES information for that, but once you add the fixture, it's all the reflectance from the bulb to the surfaces of the reflector, the fixture. So I personally would try to find one that's closer to the actual fixture type and use that, and just make sure you get all the proper information for the bulb, number of bulbs, lumens per bulb for the fixture that you're using. If they don't have the IES for that, but they will more than likely have the information for that. Even if they tell you the bulb type, you can usually get the lumen outputs for the bulbs and just know the number of bulbs, multiply that together, put that in for your output, and then use another light fixture that's similar, for the IES file. So that's what I would recommend for that. Let's see. So there's another question. Okay, look good here. Screen is paused. Can you see it now? Okay, perfect. Yeah, I don't want to do that one again. Okay, it looks like there's also a hand raised. That's Terry. Let's see, and I got your questions there. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so let's get started. This class is going to be, let me forward into the slideshow here. Shaders in depth and the 3dsMax material editor. I know that this class was supposed to be, I believe it was principles of lighting. I ended up changing that around a little bit because since we're going to be doing architectural visualization stuff, we don't really need to know a lot about principles of lighting. That's more for character lighting and animation and stuff like that. So I'm want to more focus on the nuts and bolts of Max and teaching you guys how to use it and to be able to go through the pipeline to create your renders in Max. Because if I give you kind of spotty information in Max and then other principle stuff, I think it might be a little confusing. And I figure this you'll get a little bit more out of it. I also, the final class is going to be a lot more than 8 sessions, because 8 sessions it's really tough to cover all this information. I mean, basically this topic, the material editor and shaders in depth, I mean, you could write a book or 2 books on this information on its own. So I'm going to try to stretch the class out to longer, at least 12, maybe 16 sessions, and really get into the nuts and bolts of it. And then I'll probably touch a little bit on principles of lighting and camera work. We are going to have a camera class, and I think that's going to be this Friday, which will be cameras and creation of cameras for rendering, and get into that a little bit, because there's a lot of settings in Max for creating cameras and lens types and stuff like that. So that's going to be Friday. But today I'm going to get into a little bit more in depth into shaders, and I want to make sure that you guys all know the material editor inside and out, because it's a really important part for your renders. And once you know the material editor and have a good understanding of the different shader types, material types, you'll be able to create pretty much any surface that you want for rendering in Max, and that's going to be invaluable. So I believe this is going to be the best way to go. If anybody wants me to change that around and get more into the principles of certain stuff, I can. Just let me know. You can just post it as a question, or if you think that this is the best way to go, let me know. So like I say, I'm putting this together for the final class, and this is the beta. So I just want to make sure that you guys are getting all the information that you want to learn. So so let me know, drop me a line. Probably best case would be after the class, just drop a line or a comment or whatever. But for now, this is what we're gonna stick to on this class. We're first gonna touch on the material editor. I'm gonna open it up, show you guys where all the commands are, and how to apply textures. Let me pop it in the next slide here. So we're going to go to the material editor, and then the assignment of the materials to objects, and then we're going to get into shaders after that. Let's see, the information that I have so far for this, I think it's going to be a full class. Now, if we have time at the end on the shaders in depth, because there's not a lot of information on the shaders in this the slide presentation, if we have enough time, I'll get more in depth into displacement shaders and a couple things of that nature. So we're going to stick to the material editor, and then we're going to get into shaders as much as we can. And so however much time we have at the end is as much information as I'll be able to add to that. And if there's anything you guys want for the next class, just let me know. You can send me an email or type in a question here, and I can add that more shader information for the next class. But yeah, the material editor is going to be our main focus. So, and then basically I just regurgitate what I just said here. So Max Material Editor. Excuse me. So first thing we're going to look at with the material editor is the UI. And as it says here, the basic commands, like how you get your materials, put them to library, and assign them to the objects are located both the menu bar and the buttons to the right and below the material window. And I'm going to pop that up and show you what I mean. When I mention menu bar, that's basically your menu bar at the top, like how they have at the top of programs. Every one of these dialogues has its own menu bar. And usually you can find commands both in that menu bar, and there's a graphical user interface with buttons. So you can find them in both locations. It's pretty much whatever you're comfortable using. And another thing here is right-clicking on the material preview window allows you to change the sample matrix size and move and copy materials. So, before I go any further down, I'm going to show you these two things so you can see what I mean. So the first thing, this is the material editor. And by hitting the M key on your keyboard, that opens the material editor. That's the hotkey. And one thing that we want to focus on is, because we're using Mental Ray, how I showed you before how to load Mental Ray as the renderer. If you go into rendering and render setup, I'm just going to run through it really briefly to show you. Under Common, in the bottom, under Assign Renderer, you want Mental Ray. Once you assign this, you want to click on Save as Defaults. And what that does is that makes it default to Mental Ray Renderer every time you open the program. If you don't click on this, then you'll have to do this every time. So you want to hit that Save as Defaults. Sorry, that was kind of loud. And then hit OK. Now it's defaulted to Mental Ray, so anytime you open the program, you'll be in Mental Ray. Reason for that, a lot of the shader lists, when you go to get material, aren't available. If you don't have Mental Ray assigned, the Mental Ray shaders just aren't there. So you want to make sure that's the case, and you'll know if you don't have it assigned whenever you go in there and you don't see any of the Mental Ray materials. So let me make sure here. So the basic commands, I'm going to show you those, and then the right click changes the size. Let's see. Okay, so up here at the top, this is the menu bar, and under material, you've got your options for get material, pick from object, assign to selection, put to library. There's a lot of other ones here, and we're not going to have time to cover everything, but I want to cover all the basic ones that you're going to be using most often. So, for example, under material, you've got get material, pick from object. These are the same as down here. So you've got get material, put material to scene, assign to selection. So you have both buttons at the bottom and side that correspond to what's up in your menu bar. So that's just a preference. If you prefer using the buttons, use the buttons. If you like the menu bar, you can use the menu bar. But now if you right click on one of these materials, you'll notice that there's a right click menu. Now this is your sample matrix size. So right now it's set to 5.3. You can set it to 3.2, and it's just in the number of material samples that are in your view. It doesn't mean that you're losing materials, because you can scroll down here, the same amount is there. It's just what's in your view. The more that you have in there, if the actual material with textures assigned, the slower everything will run. So you basically want to start off here at a 3 by, I think it's, 3 by 2, and increase it as you need if you need to see other materials. And you can drag and copy and drag and rotate your materials if you want to copy them to different locations. The drag copy is selected. You can turn that on and off, but basically that means you can drag these into other slots. As you can see, everything's a drag and drop functionality within the material editor, and a lot of the stuff in Max in general, which can be really handy. But also, if you're not used to that, it might take a little bit just to get comfortable. But anything drag and drop, left click, hold it down to drag it, let go, and it drops it. So those are the basic UI. And right clicking on material preview, change matrix size. Double clicking on material opens